Ma'am, share my blessing. You buried the truth. It wants to break out. Untold is a Filipino horror movie currently streaming on Netflix. It was written and directed by Roger Cabrito, and there were 4 other people involved in the writing process. Check out the respective IMDb pages for the full listings of their work. And it centers around a journalist named Vivian, played by Jodie Maria, who is bound and determined to have as much success as possible to take care of her mother because the father is no longer there. She has some associates that work hard for her. She wants to work hard for the money, work hard for the money. Oh, money, 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 money. Give her lots of money. And she will go to any lengths to break a story. But unfortunately, some literal ghosts from the past are bound and determined to prevent her from achieving this success. So basically the message is simple. The price of fame does have a heavy, heavy, heavy price if you are not willing to do things right. And basically the past will always come back to haunt you. Now, when it comes to horror movies from other countries, I have found that if they are from, say, India, Indonesia, or the Philippines, I think there's a bit of a cultural difference as far as what stuff is scary over there in those respective countries compared to here. And I am not saying, by the way, the U.S. makes tremendous horror movies all the time. Believe me, I have seen some fucking slop shoved out on streaming, shoved into theaters when it should have been shoved into a goddamn sewage system. So when I find something that at least halfway interests me, the poster looked kind of cool with Miss Maria being dragged down and, taken down by a whole bunch of hands and everything. Kind of like The Apparition, except Untold actually has effort put into it, unlike The Apparition, which isn't necessarily... it's not really a whole lot of praise because The Apparition was really, really bad. That being said, she does have some associates named Benji, Joam Bunkan, and also a young up-and-coming reporter, Louise Kari Onima. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing or butchering these names flat out. But basically, it goes back to a story that Vivian broke a while ago over a land dispute that didn't end all that well. And that's going to kind of carry her through this movie and basically just wear her down because the guilt and the guilt by association, however you want to phrase it, basically Vivian may not be the great person that she purports to be. And also, maybe somebody that you may not want to root for. I will say that Joey does a good job playing Vivian, and there are some nice other characters in this. Her mother, and some good body horror effects, and some decent fake outs. The problem, or at least the biggest problem I have with this movie, is they rely too much on the nightmare fake out. Oh, we're having this horrifying thing happen. Oh, it's a nightmare. And wait, something's still happening. Oh, wait, it's a nightmare within a nightmare. And going with that a couple times is okay. This movie does that a few too many times for my liking. I will still recommend Untold because I think it has a lot going for it. I do think that they could have trimmed a few minutes down. Again, maybe trimmed out one of the nightmare fake outs. I don't know if it needed to be an hour and 40 something minutes when it could have easily been 90, and that's with end credits. But it does end up having a nice little, wrap around with, Vivian going to great lengths and it costing her. That's really all there is to say. But again, decent enough performances. I think Jodie's a fine lead actress. And it doesn't hurt to, kind of have a simple story but told in a different country where there's obviously some other subtleties, such as the land disputes and stuff like that. And, maybe certain crimes that shouldn't be covered up. But that being said, I'm going to get into spoilers, so check it out on Netflix. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, basically, what she saw was she recorded some land dispute where there were some people that ended up burying some others in cement and killing them. And there's only one survivor, this guy Ernesto, that she ended up putting in jail, but he got busted out of jail. More on that here in a bit. While doing a report a little bit earlier before she ends up actually interviewing Ernesto, a man that she helped put away, a woman comes up and gives her the bracelet, hence the intro, just gives her a bracelet, share my blessing. You buried the truth. It wants to break out. And that is something that is going to haunt Vivian for the rest of this. I'm certain it was just a filmmaking thing, or maybe that's just how they make, horror movies, but the jump between, Filipino and English, I know there are some words that don't translate except in English, so I understand it, but it was a little bit jarring. It was like, all right, oh wait, oh okay, I thought I maybe hit the button on the language track. And I like foreign horror movies. I don't mind paying attention to that stuff, and it's great to hear it in the original language. I just thought maybe I messed up. So then there is one girl that kind of, factors into a story that, well, Vivian ends up stealing. Her name is Elaine! And if you have a problem with animal violence, there is going to be like one implication of animal violence, even though it looks really, really fakey, so you know that an actual animal wasn't harmed, I hope. And basically, Vivian is haunted by, once she gets that bracelet put on her by this weird woman that obviously is tied into, like in some form or another, the group of people that got buried in the cement. She is basically haunted by all these nightmares. There was this association she had with Benji, where he wanted her to move to Canada to basically get away from all this. They mentioned that like 2, maybe 3 times. They don't really go into it, but it is what it is. So, basically, since Vivian was there and Vivian did nothing, it is a combination of guilt and also the fact that she could have stopped this. She, should have probably called the police and said, and made sure she broke the story just before the police got there. But no, she was greedy, and her greed finally caught her. And there is this saying that the lady with the bracelet has, and also any of the ghosts. It's Sator Arepo Tenet Opera Rotas. I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. I do apologize. But that is something that is said, and if you Google the translation, you'll see it has a few ties to the meaning of this. There is a girl named Amanda that lost a woman named Teresa. That was her mother in, I believe she was the main one. It was like, you said nothing bad would happen to us. And Amanda basically is like, oh, you're going to interview this guy, this lone survivor of this whole thing. So he ends up basically getting shot by her, and there are these ghosts around her and others, because these ghosts are coming for Vivian. They're coming for everybody involved in this. They are going to get her, one way or another. It's like The Grudge, only Filipino. And basically the bad people are out to get her, and there's even a therapy session at one point, where this is her boss, by the way, that is basically telling her she has to do this. Her boss is like worried about her. And she ends up going to therapy and breaks all this stuff. Breaks all this stuff to the therapist. And I just don't understand how in the world, like, all this was, like she tells all this stuff, and then we cut back to the therapist, who I think does fine. She only has like one scene. But she goes to visit Amanda also in jail, because Amanda shot a guy, even though she was justified. And she eventually is like, I'm sorry, Mama, and bashes her head against the metal bars of the jail door, basically, until she dies. And things are not going well for Vivian. She also ended up finding out from Elaine a story about cats being served in food. And I have to say that any country that wants to eat cats and wants to eat animals like that, you're fucking psychos. I don't care if anybody from this country or any other country happens to see it. You're fucking psychos. You tried to do that to my goddamn cat, and I will make sure you don't see the light of day. Your eyes will not open again. So, while all this is going on, she ends up actually doing something where she steals Elaine's idea and makes it look like somebody is doing something to a cat and putting cat, meat in food, but she gets exposed as basically not only an idea stealer, but also a cat killer. Because that's something that you want on your fucking head. And there's one where a guy named Jasper takes her out to dinner, and Benji is kind of freaking out because he's cursed by all this stuff, because it turns out Benji was actually the one filming that and didn't want to keep filming, wanted to stop this thing, and that's revealed at the end, but he ends up stabbing his eye out with a fork while they're at an outside restaurant. And then he's buried, and at his wake, he left his life savings. It was her tickets to go to Canada, or to get away from all this. Oh, and by the way, he also vaped apparently, and she put the vape to his mouth, and he somehow was able to vape even in death. Man, addiction is a disease. And speaking of diseases, we have guilt. We have guilt being a disease. Elaine and her fight over the fact that she stole the goddamn deal, the story, and she gets hit by a bus, Final Destination style. And then it turns out she's telling her boss and Louise all this stuff, and everything is going absolutely just tits up for Miss Vivian. And it turns out that she had a good relationship with her dad, who was not a good person, even practiced her reporting skills on him. And he basically made bad deals with people and associated with bad people, and therefore got stabbed through the nape of his neck through his eye. Physics. That's talent. That's talent, right? I'll give him credit for that. They really wanted him dead. And she basically is worried she's never going to be able to break this curse. Jasper tries to help her by finding the woman that cursed her. And then the woman that cursed her basically is attacking her, saying, you need to repent for what you said the Sator, etc., etc. But then she wasn't attacking her. And then she suddenly was in the grave. Vivian was. And she was getting attacked by the hands. And then, basically she ends up... Essentially, her job is totally fucking toast. Benji was trying to help her. Benji is trying to make sure that she's okay. But she ends up basically at this place because she sees her mom being targeted by Ernesto, even though Ernesto's dead. And she ends up at this building where basically her mother, it's not really her mother, ends up getting her to confess all the bad things that she did. And the only way she can solve this is to jump off the building. So she ends up dropping to her death as her mother sees. And then, Benji is like all freaked out and all this stuff. And Louise basically has taken over her job. That was kind of something that she said to Benji, which could have been the ghost talking, could have actually been Louise's, delusions of grandeur. I mean, to be fair, she gets the job and she's younger and everything, so they want to go with that. I assume that's why they wanted to go with it. Nothing wrong with either of these two women, by the way, as far as their talent. But I'm just saying that is what the news always goes for. But, oh wait, Vivian isn't dead. She's just very confused. Possibly had a head injury. Possibly is just in a deep depression. Possibly in a personal purgatory. It's a little bit... It's simplistic, but also leaves a couple questions unanswered. But it gets a B. It's not bad. It's atmospheric and has some good body horror effects. It's just too many nightmare fake outs keep it from going higher. And also it's a fairly standard, basic story. That being said, don't do shit like that if you're a news reporter and then not expect backlash. Don't watch people get buried in cement. What the fuck's wrong with you? So yeah, anyway, B. Agree, disagree what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rentland. Until we meet again, happy trails to you.